Canada chooses a German submarine. Was it the right decision? South Korea sailed one of its most advanced submarines 14,000 kilometers across the Pacific to Victoria. Canadian sailors rowed aboard. The submarine exercised with the Royal Canadian Navy. Its manufacturer promised faster deliveries, a larger boat, cruise missiles, armored vehicle production, and enough industrial investment to make a bid look like a defense catalog had crashed into a Canadian tire. Germany won anyways. Canada has selected Thyssenkrupp, Marine Systems, as the preferred supplier for up to 12 Type 212CD submarines. The headline says Canada picked a German boat, but the decision goes much deeper. Canada has chosen to join a German-Norwegian undersea force with common submarines, common parts, shared maintenance, joint training, and potentially even exchanged crews. Canada selected the Wolfpack. Hey friends, Wes here, defense journalist, Army and Air Force veteran, honorary Canadian, and Tim Hortons aficionado, and I'm an American who should probably be concerned that Canada just conducted the largest military procurement in its history without even giving us a chance to ruin the bidding process. Anyways, Canada's government calls this the largest defense procurement in the country's history. The Royal Canadian Navy wants as many as 12 new submarines, with the first 4 ready for delivery by 2034. That's fast. The contract should be finalized in 2027, next year. Now, Germany's Type 212CD beat South Korea's KSS-3 after one of the most intense defense competitions Canada has held in decades. Technically, the fight isn't even completely over. Thyssenkrupp, is the preferred supplier, not yet the signed contractor. If negotiations collapse, Ottawa can still turn to the Hanwha Ocean and its Korean submarine. That caveat is kind of a big deal. Canada has selected the negotiating table. It hasn't received a submarine yet. Still, the direction is clear. Canada currently operates 4 Victoria-class submarines acquired secondhand from Britain. Only one was considered seaworthy when the government announced the German selection. One submarine for a country with coastlines on the Atlantic and the Pacific and the Arctic Oceans. Canada has one of the longest coastlines in the world, and a coastline doesn't patrol itself. Apparently, the Moose have refused naval service. The Victoria class has provided Canada with a legitimate undersea capability for more than 2 decades. Canadian submarines have earned strong reputations inside NATO's exercises, and the boats can still perform valuable surveillance and training missions. Canada, is this true that any U.S. warships in the Great Lakes have to have their screws removed, their propellers, as part of a 100-year-old treaty so that the U.S. won't invade Canada? Probably a smart decision with the way things are going. So, submarines are maintenance-intensive machines. Saltwater spends every waking moment trying to turn them into expensive reefs. Batteries age, hulls require inspection, sonar systems need updates, crews need training, rest, and certification. A Navy with 4 submarines will never have 4 submarines available for operations. Some will sit in maintenance, others will conduct training, another may be preparing to deploy or recovering from one. When 3 of the 4 are unavailable, Canada's 3-ocean strategy becomes a 1-boat shell game with a very large map. The proposed fleet of 12 changes the mathematics. 12 boats could support sustained operations in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic, while others undergo maintenance and training. The Royal Canadian Navy could preserve a submarine presence instead of scheduling one whenever the machinery, the crew availability, and the alignment of the planets permit. That is a capacity Canada is building. The Type 212CD brings a very specific kind of capability to that fleet. First, a clarification for anyone picturing nuclear missiles under the maple leaf. An attack submarine is named for its mission, not its power plant. These boats hunt ships and other submarines. They conduct surveillance, gather intelligence, insert special operations forces, protect friendly fleets, and threaten enemy vessels. The German Type 212CD is conventionally powered. Canada isn't buying nuclear weapons or nuclear reactors. The letters CD stand for Common Design because Germany and Norway developed the submarine together. Germany plans to operate 6. Norway also plans to operate 6. Canada could eventually add 12 more to the same undersea family. That would create a potential fleet of 24 closely related submarines across 3 NATO navies. And one feature makes them especially interesting. They are supposed to be extraordinarily quiet. Submarine warfare is less about top speed than about who hears whom first. A submarine that detects its opponent without being detected controls the engagement. It can fire, it can follow, it can move away, or it can spend 3 days listening while the other crew has no idea they have company. The Type 212CD uses a distinctive diamond-shaped hull. A conventional rounded hull can return a stronger sonar echo when active sonar energy strikes it. The Type 212CD's outer shape is designed to scatter more of that energy away from the source and reduce the clean return an enemy sonar operator needs to identify the boat. The submarine also has an extremely low magnetic signature, which matters because aircraft and ships can use magnetic anomaly detectors to find the disturbance created when a large metal object moves through the Earth's magnetic field. Acoustic stealth helps it hide from ears. Magnetic reduction helps it hide from compasses with anger issues. Now, Germany and Norway designed the boat for the North Atlantic and Arctic operating environments, where Russian submarines, rough seas, cold water, complex seabeds, and layers of temperature can make underwater detection a deeply unpleasant physics exam. The submarine's propulsion system is central to its stealth. A normal diesel-electric submarine charges its batteries using diesel engines. Well, those engines need air, which means the submarine eventually has to surface or raise a snorkel. Snorkeling creates vulnerability. The mast can be detected by radar, infrared sensors, aircraft satellites, or the deeply scientific method of somebody looking in the right direction. The Type 212CD uses fuel cell air-independent propulsion, usually shortened to AIP. The system combines stored hydrogen and oxygen to generate electricity without conventional combustion. That allows the submarine to remain submerged for far longer without running its diesel engines. Now, Canada says the boat can remain fully submerged for more than 40 days in near total silence. Lithium-ion batteries provide additional energy, especially during higher speed operations. Now, 40 days underwater sounds close to nuclear submarine endurance, but the fine print deserves some daylight. Air-independent propulsion works best during slow, quiet patrols. Speed consumes energy rapidly. A Type 212CD can't sprint around the Arctic for 40 days like a nuclear attack submarine with a German flag painted on it. The boat still carries finite fuel, oxygen, food, weapons, and human patience. What AIP does provide is the ability to creep through an operational area for weeks without exposing a snorkel. For an ambush predator, creeping is the job. And this is where the competition becomes interesting because South Korea offered a formidable alternative. The KSS-3 is larger than the Type 212CD. The Korean submarine displaces around 4,000 tons submerged, compared with roughly 3,000 tons for the German design. That additional volume provides more space for fuel, for weapons, for crew accommodations, for sensors and supplies. South Korea's operational version carries torpedo tubes and vertical launch cells. Those cells can support land attack weapons. Land attack. Strategery. We're gonna get them terrorists. Land attack. Those cells can support land attack weapons and give the boat a strike capacity beyond traditional submarine hunting. Now, Hanwha's Canadian offering combined air-independent propulsion with lithium-ion batteries and long-range patrol design suited to the Pacific. The KSS-3 is also in service. 3 Batch 1 submarines already operate with the Republic of Korea Navy, while the larger Batch 2 boats are under construction. Still, the German Type 212CD has not entered frontline service yet. That maturity difference gave Hanwha a serious argument. South Korea demonstrated the point. With the deployment of ROKS Dosan on Changho, the boat sailed from Busan to Victoria in May. It covered around 14,000 kilometers, the longest voyage ever undertaken by a South Korean submarine. Canadian sailors joined part of the journey and participated in joint exercises. Hanwha also claimed it could deliver 4 submarines before 2035 and complete all 12 by 2043. It paired the submarine offer with proposals for Canadian armored vehicles and artillery production. South Korea showed up with a working submarine and a stopwatch. Germany showed up with NATO. Hanwha later said its proposal could not have overcome what it called the barrier posed by the NATO alliance. That statement has the unmistakable aroma of a company that spent millions on a competition and would now like everyone to know the referees were cousins with the other team. And there's some truth underneath the bitterness. The deciding unit of measurement wasn't tonnage. It was how easily Canada could plug its future submarines into a larger allied force. Germany and Norway offered common training pipelines, shared maintenance, joint logistics, interchangeable spare parts, coordinated upgrades, common software development, and the possibility of exchanging crew members. Norway is already building a joint maintenance system for the Type 212CD fleet. Germany and Norway plan to manage that class together throughout its service life. Canada can enter that system instead of creating an entirely separate support structure from scratch. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said the program would bind Canada, Germany, and Norway together for decades. He isn't exaggerating. A submarine purchase lasts 40 or 50 years. Canada is selecting the country that supplies replacement parts in 2052, the Navy that helps train new commanders in 2041, and the engineering team that fixes a software defect after everyone who signed the original agreement has retired. So the hull is the visible part. The operational network lasts much longer. One last thing here, Canada also gains access to a submarine designed by Norway, a country that already lives with Russia's northern fleet next door. Norway doesn't treat Arctic submarine warfare as a futile planning scenario. It treats it as a Tuesday. Russia's most important naval forces operate from bases around the Kola Peninsula. That region holds attack submarines, cruise missile submarines, and ballistic missile submarines that form a critical part of Russia's nuclear deterrent. Those vessels must move through the Barents Sea, Norwegian Sea, and North Atlantic to threaten NATO reinforcement routes or reach wider patrol areas. German, Norwegian, and Canadian submarines operating from a common design would create a connected surveillance force across that northern approach. Canada's boats could still patrol its own Arctic archipelago, monitor approaches to the Northwest Passage, protect undersea infrastructure, and support NATO operations further east, but the Type 212CD also gives Canada a highly discreet way to confirm what is happening beneath Arctic waters. Satellites can see surface ships. Radar can track aircraft. Underwater activity remains difficult to observe, and countries make expansive claims when they believe nobody can verify what their submarines are doing. A Canadian submarine under the ice can collect acoustic signatures, follow Russian contacts, monitor maritime approaches, and establish an unmistakable sovereign presence without announcing its location. Sovereignty carries more weight when somebody is physically there to enforce it. Now, climate change is making the Arctic more accessible. Canada says the region is warming nearly 3 times faster than the global average. Longer periods of navigable water will create more shipping, more commercial interest, more military activity, and more opportunities for countries to test Canadian control. Russia has already invested heavily in Arctic bases, airfields, radars, ports, and naval forces. China describes itself as a near-Arctic state, which is a geographically adventurous phrase for a country whose northern border remains thousands of kilometers away. Anyways, Canada cannot answer those pressures with a policy paper and a very stern map. It needs sensors, aircraft, ships, satellites, and submarines that can remain in the region without asking an ally to provide the entire picture. So, the Type 212CD becomes one layer inside a much larger Canadian buildup. Ottawa is also buying P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft, new river-class destroyers, Arctic patrol ships, icebreakers, and over-the-horizon radar. The submarine connects those systems beneath the surface. An over-the-horizon radar can warn Canada that aircraft or ships are approaching. A P-8 can search a broad section of ocean. A submarine can sit inside the route and wait. Still, the Korean bid exposed a legitimate strategic argument. Canada is, yes, an Atlantic and Arctic NATO country, but it's also a Pacific country. The KSS-3's larger hull, greater weapons capacity, and existing service record, and long-range design may have made it the stronger independent Pacific Patrol platform. A Canadian KSS-3 could have operated far from home with substantial weapons and more internal space for long deployments. Regardless, the submarine decision gives Canada an undersea capability whose maintenance, training, and political support won't depend on Washington. That doesn't weaken NATO interoperability. Germany and Norway are NATO allies. It broadens the number of allies Canada can depend on. A country with one supplier has a relationship. A country with several suppliers has options, and options have become rather fashionable whenever the landlord downstairs starts threatening tariffs and asking whether your country would look better as a state. That's it for today, my friends. If this kind of military technology breakdown is useful to you, hit that subscribe button so the algorithm quits treating you like a stranger. Hitting that big thumbs up also really helps these videos go out to more people, so consider liking. And I write longer form pieces on Medium and Substack that have a little bit more analysis than I can do in a typical YouTube video. So consider checking that out at the QR code or just weso'donnell.com. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.